Sorry. Try again. Our logic process goes like this. We say that the moment that women will become more selfish, it's going to be very visible. As they say, it's going to be taught at school. Everybody's going to know about it, that now women are expected to be selfish. We think that the moment that women are going to more act like that, and everybody will flag them as people who tend to be more selfish, we think it's going to damage them at work, at school, in other places, because of the backlash that will happen when people are expecting them to behave this way and going to be hurt by them, and all the progress that we have for many years going to be stopped. Before I'm going to an analysis, just want to make a very small rebuttal point that we think is important. We think the main logic that we gain from open government is basically going like this. Look, we know that throughout history, women had less chances, less of them are CEO, and so on. And the only reason for that is selfish. If we'll fix the selfishness, then everything will be okay. We think this logic is absolutely ridiculous. We think that after we change huge amount of things, the influence of religion, structural reasons such as discrimination, such as like women, like the pregnancy, like there are so many things that exist right now that as we reduced them, we saw that women got much more power and their situation was improved drastically. We think that they need to explain us why specifically more selfish is important, and I don't think they did it, and that's why I think they're in a weak position right now. What we're going to bring in this debate, the first thing, why it's going to be very visible, and it's going to happen not only as they say, okay, they'll make like better decisions that I think that already happening, like more of them try to be managers, more of them are going and trying to be have a career and so on. We think that why it also influences the day-to-day interactions, and why in these interactions are going to appear as more selfish and so on. So first of all, why it's going to be very noticeable. So as they said, it's going to be in schools, in campaigns, and so on. In order for that to be effective, in order to the motion to exist, we need to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about a school in which the teacher is speaking about women needs to be selfish. They need to put their own interest over other interests. They need to do actions that will hurt other people but will advance them. And everybody knows that, everybody understands that, and it's going outside all the time. Why we think that this is, no thank you. Why we think that this is, okay, but besides this, we think that it's also going to be visible to some extent. Okay, so yeah, maybe more women will choose a career, something that's already happening. But we think that also more women are going to, for example, thinking that they need to like not share their the thing that the summaries in the university with other people because they think about themselves. They try to hurt other people that with them in work in order to be advanced instead of them, like to do things that actually hurt others, as the motion states, in order to get things. I think that also their examples. Don't necessarily show how they hurt other people. They just make more rightful decisions. It's not necessarily damaging other people, and we think that they need to defend the hard case in which the women do things that actually hurt people in order to advance themselves. Before I continue to explain what exactly the backlash is, how it's going to look like, I'm going to talk from closing.
We need to prove to us how is this significantly more than status quo. As far as we are concerned, that is the status quo. What's the delta in the new situation that will change women to be even worse than they are?
Oh, okay, so good question. My analysis wasn't clear. Right now, women are not doing things we think that hurt other people when they try to advance themselves. We think that they share with other people information. We think that they not try to like hurt other people when they're trying to be promoted. They're not trying to lie in order to be advanced and so on. This is selfish acts. They need to defend the wall that they do these selfish acts, and we think at the moment that they will do these selfish acts, they're going to be this backlash that I'm going to elaborate now on my points. So first of all, let's talk about workforce. We think that, first of all, at most, if we understand that right now women are perceived as more selfish, we think it's just going to get them less job offers. Why is that generally? Because we think that most jobs are relying on teamwork. They're relying on people working together and trying to get the best outcome of the best three, if of the best group. If in the group you know that there is someone there who's trying to hurt other people, how? He might, like, for example, do something that show only her contribution and diminish other contributions in order to be promoted next time. They might try to insult a weak person there because he will be more afraid of her, and then she'll be able to be more noticeable and more promoted. We think that these actions that are selfish and are likely to happen if you're going to teach selfishness. We think that these actions are going to likely to prevent them from succeeding. I think that secondly, it's going to prevent them in achieving more social networks. We think that at the moment that I know that some women, okay, and we understand this happens on two levels. On the first level, I just don't want to be more close to them because I'm afraid that they will do something for me. I know in advance that they might do something for me because that's how they are being taught. But more than that, we think that within the interaction and when I see them anywhere, I'll likely to get hurt to some extent because they like to do something that will hurt me. And at the moment that they're going to be hurt, I'm likely to distance them. Why we don't encourage selfishness generally? Because people, you might hurt people, and these people are going to be mad, and it's not fair. And when these people are going to be mad, they're going to feel it's not fair, and they're going to do something bad to you too. I think at the moment that women are going to be doing this stuff in school, they're less likely to join social networks, and they're going to be more attacked, and this is going to hurt them in the long run. Before I continue, I take POI forum first. No? Okay, take another one.
Yeah. So basically, you are conflating two different things without selfishness and being an idiot. It doesn't imply being selfish, insulting other people. It's just doing things to prioritize yourself.
Look, everybody prioritizes themselves. Obviously, it's not a debate. The debate is prioritize yourself instead of other people. You have to accept in your world that other people being hurt. This is a ridiculous way to look at emotion. People are going to be hurt when you're going to do that, and when they're going to hurt, they're going to suffer some backlash. Through work, through be joined to social networks, being successful at school because less people want to study with you. And we think that generally all the progress that we think that already happened so far. And also, they need to explain to us why will they do other things that are more positive and have more chance of succeeding. What we did so far to advance women in society was breaking down lots of the chains that happened now, and it was pretty successful. Structural changes, and we think these structural changes should happen more and not being now worsened off because it's going to create this backlash. We call you to refuse to the motion.
PPM to continue the case for psychopaths. Here.
Notice this debate is about mostly education. That is the most effective way for them to achieve the tool. Now, they're suggesting, and this is crucial, to implement a negative thing, a negative criteria, or a negative thing in young kids, and say that this is going to be nuanced, this is going to be developed very well, and this is going to make them become balanced, and this is not going to be, and this is going not to hurt them. We're saying selfishness is bad. When you teach that from young age, is even worse, and the consequences are going to be worse for women and the whole society as in general. A few points in my speech. So one, why this is going to make them bad, and they're not going to have the nuanced priority that they want to make women more equal. Secondly, about the consequences. Before that, a few points of rebuttal. One, regarding the fact that currently women are being asked to give up on themselves and be nice to society, like giving up their careers and give birth. Notice they are very lacking in population analysis. Most of the time, schools are not encouraging women to give birth in any case and give up their careers. It's mostly communities. Now let's say they have the conservatives or religious communities. They do not change there because religious and conservative communities will never change or have a very, very minor delta. Notice that also liberals today in Western countries are also raising their kids to be very, very equal. So also that new generation that they're going to teach is also very lacking in impact. They're like going in between. So first of all, notice their delta is very small, and secondly, they don't give you an analysis as to what extent of this delta is going to be. Now, secondly, they're saying that this is okay to say that you can. This is basically giving them more choice. This is very odd to us because when you in my point are going to prove why this is going to make them become very selfish, and this is not doing the opposite. But basically, think of the rationale. They're saying that that you need to be selfish. Now they're saying that being a woman and having children is basically it is exactly the opposite of selfish, because it's inherent to become a woman to be unselfish, because you need to go through pain, you need to go through a lot of sacrifices that are emotional, that are physiological. That means that they basically push them away from that thing, and this is basically much worse because they eliminate their choice, and we obviously think that being a woman and being a mother is a legitimate choice. Sorry. Okay, to the point. Also, one last thing is about the fact that the fact that it's going to make good alliances. We think that this is very strange to us because today in our world, I think that the most advanced companies are the ones that have the least ego, that are most meritocratic, that are not looking for people with ego. And I think that Itai understood that pretty well, that it's much harder to cooperate with somebody that has the ego. But let's go to the point because I think that this is eventually going to conclude all the benefits. So first of all, this is a quick point of framing. Before that notice they're not very specific to why specifically do you use that tool. Okay, why don't you just educate men to the contrary? Why don't you educate for equality? Why don't you educate for choice? We don't understand why you have to do it through selfishness. This is one thing. But to the point, why this is going to create the opposite? How does this is going to look like in education? We think that propaganda is obviously not really in this debate. This is not something that I'm sure that they support. So let's go to the education. So we think that the children, as they said, are very flexible in their mind. They perceive the education that they receive from the teacher with very high impact. That means that they see everything that you tell them, and they perceive that because their mind is flexible and they're naive, and they basically get that. Now, secondly, we see that they check the boundaries. That means that you basically place their boundaries, and usually these boundaries stay with them for their whole life. So I'm like not a kid anymore, but the boundaries that I received when I was 5 and 6 and 10 are basically ones that I stick with them. If it's like in hygiene, if it's like in just habit, this is things that stick with children because these are the places where it just sticks with their mind. Now notice how they perceive messages. Kids do not perceive messages as nuanced. That's why children movies don't have like the bad guy, the gray guy, and the white guy. It has a bad and a good guy. That's it. That's the way that children's mind is able to perceive things, and this is crucial because when you tell a child you need to be selfish, they don't think, okay, I need to prioritize myself in certain cases when it makes a society equal to me, so I'll be equal to men. No, they don't think that. They think I deserve more, sit down, and therefore I'm privileged. I deserve that. I deserve to get that promotion over the other guy. The impacts that I are giving you. I deserve to get all the things. I deserve to get this chore in the university over that person, and I deserve to copy from him and make him hurt because I prioritize myself. I deserve that, and moreover, and this is crucial. I deserve, and this is really important. I deserve. I need to have one choice, which is the thing that prioritizes me. That means that I eliminate choices of collaboration, of things that are basically alliances, of things that are basically sacrifices, and we think that this is horrible. And now, So this is about education. Now, if you understand this point about education, what are the impacts? What are the consequences of that? I'll take you in a second. What are the consequences of that? So, one, we're saying that you are less likely to cooperate with people in business. Now, and this is crucial because in order to be a good employee or a good academic, you need cooperation that is lacking of ego, that is basically not trying to step on other people's toes. That is the way to get across and progress mostly. Now, if you want a stable relationship, not just romantically, but also with regular friends, you need to make sure that you prioritize them instead. And notice their worldview is going to be very black and white. Therefore, they're most likely to be less friendly and have less stable relationship and friends. Thirdly, it's just emotionally draining to be that person that is always prioritizing himself. He's usually getting the stares. He's usually getting getting the talk behind the back. He's usually the guy that people hate. That means that this is bad for them emotionally. But lastly, this is also meaning that they're less likely to donate to others, to help others, and to be compassionate toward their families and to their friends, which is horrible on all levels. Before I continue, closing.
Yeah. In most societies, the stigma is status quo, that they are whores, that there are plenty of bad feelings, that they have bad disease, that they are irrational and that not trustworthy. What is the difference with this additional?
The difference is that you, thank you. The difference is that you create a black and white picture that is going to make them bad. You do not need to educate for selfishness. You can do other things, and think that the consequences are horrible. Now to the impact, because you need to understand that this is also eliminating them from choice. Now they do not perceive the option of becoming a mother, which is a beautiful thing. Sacrifice for your family, having a family. This is a thing that people see as like the goal of their life, as the holy grail of their life. This is eliminating that because they're being told that this is not good. And notice that they're getting all the backlash. And why Itai's backlash is true? Because the men are going to perceive that men already perceive women as like, they perceive like this, like especially in conservative communities, they already perceive women, the feminist movement and the equality movement as very radical. This is basically going to make them an even harder backlash on the people that are mostly needed, to have equality, and progress is being made. You need to understand. Today, status quo is improving. They are harming this progress, making women worse for themselves and for their communities. Pause.
Very much, and I'd now like to invite the extension speaker to side government.
We're good?
Yeah.
For hundreds of years, women have been discriminated, with less access to jobs, degradation of personal value, undervalued and disenfranchised by society. This policy crucially changed that, not because it's principally justified or because someone will get somehow angry, but rather because it is the most important thing we have deprived women to access to equally in our society. That is, the self-esteem of themselves, to value themselves, and to know that they're as good or better than any other person in this world. That is how we're going to win this debate. First, let's deal with OO. Basically, the whole line in OO is due to them doing things that damage their visibility. It is going to be more harmful to their narrative and in order more difficult to battle society. There's 4 rebuttals which are important to this whole case of opening opposition. First, at best, this is non-comparative, what we told you in the POI. Basically, there are many other stigmas. Even if we put this into the equation, they're still over there. There's many stigmas that will remain. No, I'll give it to you at the end of the speech, promise. There's many things that will remain, so at best it's non-comparative. Second thing and most important, I told you in my POI, they conflict selfishness with being an idiot. Let me put you an example. If you're being in the discussion to be part of a CA team and you're invited, you're a woman, prioritizing yourself, being egoist or selfish, it doesn't imply telling he's a fucking idiot. It implies justifying that you believe that you have more experience in the circuit. It explains to you that it is more important to put you because you need to put, more people who haven't been CA yet. It implies doing things that you never did before because you were not empowered. It doesn't imply spitting in the face of men, rather trying to prioritize. Thirdly, I think that it is not true that such backlash will happen because it's so hard to rule in today's society the backlash they are implying. It would say, basically, that if a woman is choosing for that CA team rather than the men, the answer of the men would be, she doesn't deserve, she's too egoist because she's a woman. I believe that that strategy, that backlash is such unlikely in today's society. But even if it is likely, necessarily, if we want equality in their society, this needs to happen. If equality implies having women and men, and as a result having less men in the CA teams or in the CA, like in the administration boards, if that needs to have men being angry, it is okay. Because it is the only way in the long term that they get equality. If the cost of equality is being somehow angry for somehow time, okay, fuck that angriness, we think it's justified. Let's go to our case. We believe that egoism promotes women's self-esteem, and it is unique and crucial to change status quo. There's 3 reasons why we believe that self-esteem is empowered to egoism. First, because when you're selfish and egoist, you need to value yourself in order to prioritize your interest above others. Let me pump you an intuition first to begin this point. When you need to appoint X or Y as the boss of a certain thing, and you need to be an egoist, hence you need to justify that you are better, you need to give objective reasons why you believe you're better. In order to be able to put yourself as better than the others, you need to believe that there's some reasons that you justify you're better than the other man or the other person in that particular situation. What this implies is that when you're an egoist, you need to believe that you're the most able to maximize utility at the situation. You need to justify not only to yourself but to ones around you that you believe that you really have the capacities undergoing. Does this imply that you'll access all the jobs at first? No. But it implies that progressively, through time, you'll get the confidence that you are enough, that you are good, that you might justify yourself as being good enough. Okay. This won't get you in the first place to a CEO, but probably it will empower your self-esteem. First mechanism why you believe in yourself more, you have more self-esteem. Second mechanism why this is true is that in a capitalistic world in which we live, more egoism leads to a position that increases your self-esteem. 4 reasons why this is true. First, because you tend to prioritize yourself more in every decision within your workplace, which tends, in the long of the day, probably to get you further. CEO, probably not in 20 years, but probably when you prioritize yourself in every decision, you get furtherly. Second, you tend to accrue more success. When you try to promote yourself, to give you merits, if you want to be promoted more, you're more likely to say, yes, I was the one in the CA team. Probably I was the one who put that motion. Before, you were never able to say that motion was yours because you didn't believe that egoist was good. Now that you do believe, probably it is more likely that you aggregate more positions, more CA teams in your entire career. You put attitudes tending to power yourself up. What is the logical corollary of this? That you value yourself more due to the process and due to what you accumulate during the process. The wealth you accumulate, the positions you've accumulated during your life that makes you believe that you're good enough, that you're worthy. Third mechanism why you get more self-esteem is because you interiorize the narrative that you're not less than others due to your gender. It is legit to defy others for being unfair when it's doing on gender. And you justify yourself that it's okay to prioritize yourself in some situations and to be and do it nicely, even if your gender is X or Y. At the end of the day, we believe by 3 mechanisms, we prove to you, you believe more in yourself, you have more self-esteem. This is crucial, more important than anything you've seen in this debate because of 2 obvious impacts. The first impact, not yet, is that you get much more personal happiness because regardless if you get the job or not, you have intrinsic value to yourself. Regardless if you get that promotion, that CA-ship, you value yourself as never you've valued before. Hence, you're more personally valued to yourself and more happy. Before I go to the second impact, opening.
The fact that you have self-esteem is irrelevant because this is a bad self-esteem that in more cases can make them do decisions that would get them backwards and not promote them in any way.
And that is regardless of all my analysis because when you are self-esteem, you value more yourself. And this second impact I'm going to show to you. When you have self-esteem, you accept less the degradation made by others to you. You accept less, for example, to stay in toxic relations because you weren't confident enough to say bye-bye. Because you weren't confident enough, the first time he bit you, he said you were a bitch, to tell him you are not. To tell him you're worthy enough, that your value in and of itself as a woman and can find another person. You're not able anymore, or you're able from now on to compensate those interactions between human relations in which you're degraded.
This implies many things in woman life. In sex, no more just sex for the woman. No more just he is the priority. In every social interaction between men and women, it is no more that you are the women who should satisfy the situation. You call out unfairness much more. You get empowered. Self-esteem is what has been condemning women for many times, for many years. We give them, by this, the power to believe in themselves and to believe that from now on they can call out bastards who minusvalue them. That's why we win the debate.
Thank you very much. And I'd now like to invite the second speaker to side round of applause.
In 1918, a young suffragette woman stepped into the race in order to be trampled by the king's horse and die in protest of women not having the vote. She had to sacrifice herself for the betterment of all of women's kind. Her female friends throughout history has suffered abuse, violence, and taunts and social isolation in order to advance women everywhere. Our extension in this debate is going to be exactly about this comparative. Why individualism is antithetical to having a feminist movement. And my point is going to be what women need is solidarity, not individuality. And before I do that, 2 quick points of rebuttal to closing government. So firstly, notice that most of their case is analyzed backwards. So it says that you need self-esteem in order to be selfish, not why you need to be selfish in order to have self-esteem. Now, the rest says that if you yourself advance, if you become a CEO and so on, you will have more self-esteem. That A, assumes that selfishness will actually result in more women succeeding, and B, being men, entire government bench simply assumes that women's only problem in life is self-esteem. I will analyze why women face much greater problems in our world. So, into my first point. What women need is solidarity, not individuality. Now, we completely agree that women are oppressed, okay? Altruism is just a tiny part of this, okay? Lack of opportunities, sexual violence, domestic violence, workplace discrimination, all of these have nothing to do with just women themselves putting men in front of them. They have everything to do with right-out sexism, which we still have to change in our society. Now, who is the most important population in this debate? We believe that it's the weaker women, not the bourgeois women. This includes working class women in the West. It also includes women in India, women in the Far East, women in China, and so on. Why are they the most important population in this debate? A, because they are simply the majority of women on Earth. Secondly, because they have it the worst. They still have direct oppression. They're still exposed to things like child marriages and domestic and sexual violence that is illegal. Okay, these are the women who suffer the most under patriarchy. And thirdly, because this is where we have the most room for improvement, okay? We basically think that the white women who want to be individualists are already doing pretty much fine, and we need to care about women who are POC, who are working class, who are from the third world. Now, what is special about these societies, working class societies, non-Western societies? A, they're intensely communal values. That's how they survived through the decades, okay? They all believe in contributing yourself into your community and not being an individualist. Second, the men in those societies also sacrifice a lot. So when we hear from OG, no, the men are taught to advance only themselves. No, a man who is working class, a man who lives who is a coal miner in Britain or a textile worker in China doesn't learn that he has to advance himself. He has to learn that he learns that he has to go out every day and do horrific, mind-numbing jobs, 14 hours a day sometimes, with complete detriment to his health, in order to finance his family and his community, not to care about himself personally. And then thirdly, because individualism is considered a bourgeois Western value in those societies. Now, white middle-class bourgeois women might be satisfied with self-advancement. Like, are you personally going to be a CEO or not? But the Wicker women, the working class POC women, need a women's movement. And such a movement needs solidarity, not individuality. This is for 3 reasons. A, it is hard to be a POC or working class feminist activist. You put yourself on the front, you get death threats, rape threats, you are vilified. In order to have this kind of a feminist leader, you need women who don't care only about themselves. You need women who care, A, about all other women, and are willing to sacrifice themselves for other women, and secondly, women who care about their daughters and want a better life for their daughters. Secondly, you don't just need those leaders. You must, in order to have a movement, you must have masses of women who will fill the squares, women who will call for their rights. Feminists are always vilified. Even if you have a few leaders, they will not effect change if other selfish women are deterred from helping them. And before I continue to my third reason, I'll take first.
Most people aren't ready to sacrifice themselves even in the status quo. We don't believe that this is any comparative. There are still going to be people who are going to be ready to disproportionately sacrifice themselves for their values and justice.
Okay, so basically your point is you think that there are some women who are not going to be affected by the motion, so you are planning on failing. I'm telling you that what you need is masses of women in the women's movement. The third reason is because a social backlash becomes dramatically worse when the feminist movement adopts Western bourgeois individualist values. Think about the man who, and their sacrifices, their huge sacrifices, seeing the feminists telling their women to stop caring for the family, to stop caring for their children. Of course they will want to put the highest price possible on being a feminist. This means that if throughout history, feminist movements are the only thing that work for advancing vast numbers of women and not individuals, you don't get that under the motion, okay? Dear panel, women need a women's movement. In a world that still has child marriages, women not being allowed to drive, domestic and sexual violence that have nothing to do with women not caring about themselves and everything to do with men degrading women, we need women to stick together, to tell their stories, to fight for each other's right. Women do that when they care about the collective, when they care about other women, not when they want to advance themselves personally. For these reasons, we call on you to oppose.
Thank you very much, and I'd now like to invite the document whip to conclude the debate on their side. Round of applause, please.
Okay, 3 points in this speech. First, dealing with CO, then explaining why our impacts are the most important in this debate, and thirdly, like the final comparative with opposition. First thing of all, we think that closing opposition is almost out of the debate because they confuse the two completely different things. One thing is being selfish, and one thing is being individualistic. Being selfish means that not that you cannot cooperate, but means that you want to prioritize your satisfaction. That means that if you, as the collective, acknowledge for the same reasons that they say that cooperating is what's going to maximize as well your benefit, you are going to be cooperative. I give you an example. For Goldman Sachs is not the most generous business in the world, but yet Goldman Sachs cooperates internally and more important, cooperates with other banking in order to maximize profit. So that's the same thing for the same reasons that they say that women in aggregate cooperate in order to go better. Selfish women are going to cooperate in order to do better, because selfish is not that you cannot cooperate. It means that you want to maximize your own benefit. And therefore, the entire case is out of debate, and they can prove that for most women cooperating is bad for them, at least in the short term. Secondly, I think that they justify what women has to sacrifice for the collective. As they said in their speech, we think that sacrificing many generations of women is not good at all. So we think that with that CO should be out of the debate. Now, what's so important, or extension, the most important thing in this debate? I'm giving it at the end of the speech, please. They seem that they completely ignore the mechanisms that Antonio said in this debate, saying that they were the only way around. Three mechanisms that he said. First mechanism is that mentally you have to justify yourself in order to be egoistic. That means that if you don't want to feel that you are the worst person in the world, when you say that the one who has to leave their career is your husband and not you, you have to justify their job is better. When you have to take the last piece of pizza, you have to justify that you love pizza more than the others. You have to justify every single time that marginal utility is greater for you than the others. If not, you are going to feel shit, and human beings don't like to feel shit. This is a mechanism that goes straight in the direction that was never rebutted when it should be by closing opposition. Second mechanism, we say that you are going to claim that you are the one which makes the impact, that you are the one which put the motion, that you are the man that makes the best work in the team that of the work, and therefore to get more promotions. That's also going in the right direction. But even more important, Antonio gave a framing about how capitalism prioritize people which is selfish. That how capitalism companies love a lot the shark with one which will do anything to gain money, anything to gain their bonus, that do not care in order to gain their bonus in order to make a lot of bad things. That capitalism say that they are going to hire this woman precisely because they are willing to do whatever to get their bonus, because they are willing to get whatever to get their money. This is also a mechanism which goes in the same which goes straight. We think that this is pretty clear. This is completely ignored by closing opposition. Why is this impact the most important thing in the debate? We think that you don't leave you broke your bad romantic relation because you are egoistic, because you can think that that's the best for you, but that you break that when you feel that you are not so bad for that. We think that you don't allow bad people in your life, people which is underestimating you all the time, when you feel that you are proud of yourself, that you have the good job, that you are good since you are a child. We think that every single person in your life which are going to interact with you, you are not going to allow them to treat you as an inferior. This has a massive impact, first of all, because every single day, whatever happens in the world, you are not feeling a shit, as many women are feeling right now because of the no at the end of the speech, because the society says that they are inferior to men, but they are feeling at least as good as they are, because through our mechanisms they shift egoism to also our self-estimation. Also, we think that they are going to have greater jobs, they are going to have better relationships because they are not accepting bad relationships, they are not accepting the bad guys who are actually giving them really bad treatment, and they are also going to promote higher in companies. We think that this is extremely important in this debate. Now, in terms of OO and the final comparative. Antonio said one important thing to their case, which is that they never prove what's the delta of one more stigma in a world which every debater in this room accepted that they have a lot of stigma. That's a bad thing to be egoistic, but they have also much more stigmas. To go to 99% bad to 100 is not such a bad thing. But secondly, we think that they also ignore that the framing that he said about capitalism. In the capitalism, the selfishness is not something that is bad in every sense. Many companies love that, and many CEOs are really selfish and are very well valued by the society. You know, they look for their interests and they get well. Many people admire that kind of people. And thirdly, we think that they never deal with the thing of education. We think that when you educate the people through this, you also educate the men and everyone around to think, no, thank you, to think that this is not a bad thing, that that's justified, that they are being selfish because the society has oppressed them for many years, and therefore it's justified to be therefore. And in any case, what's the real comparative here? They say that this is going to cause harms also to the society, etc. But we think that this is not true for three reasons. First, we give you net benefits, which means that are not in the hand with harms, of feeling better with myself, that's not causing harm to others. Secondly, of having the better relationship, not having with the bad guys, that causes a harm to a bad guy, so it's not important. But in any case, if I cause a harm, I am getting as a woman the same benefit. If I say I prioritize X for me and not for you, even if I'm harming you, I'm getting an equal and identical benefit. With the difference, no thank you, with the difference that the women are the oppressed one, the ones which really need X to survive, the ones which really need X to improve, and therefore that's fair and it's justified opening.
Yeah. The delta is when we analyze how this is likely to be interpreted in the education, that's why even if you get self-esteem in the short term, in the long term, they're going to do things that will harm them, get backlash, and therefore their self-esteem will drop and it will fail.
I give many rebuttals to that, but most important is if the narrative, as everyone is set in this debate, is that they are bad, that they are not rational, that they are unable to go further, if you add this bad consequence, perhaps they have a little bit worse stigma on the society, but that's not comparative, that delta, with the massive benefit that we give when you say that you change the perspective that you see yourself, and that change every day of your life of how you feel and how you interact with every human being. Finally, in terms of opening government, we think that clearly they don't explain the mechanism of how egoism gets to better outputs. The key for that is to understand how egoism gets into self-estimation, and how self-estimation is the one which really goes to all the benefits OG says, which is to break up with that guy, to value yourself, to go for the best job, to go to high ranks in the company and have better salary. We think that even if they prove some things, the massive interaction with others and the massive interaction with yourself that self-estimation makes and was never engaged with CO is by far the most important impact in this debate. And sir, I beg you to propose.
Slide on to make the debate for their side and the debate for their
So this won't be a very difficult debate to whip because each team had basically one main case that they ran entirely upon. And I will just go over and show why specifically our case, which is greater societal change through cooperation between women, is the greatest, both in likeliness, it is the most likely to happen, and in benefit. And why the benefit that we give is also by far the largest. The main clash that we will have in this debate is what brings greater and better societal change. Now, this clash is more important than everything else that was brought upon the room because the teams in this room basically talked about two things. One, about greater societal change and how society overall perceives women. And second, specifically about individual women. And if we look about an individual woman who internalized selfishness, how will she fare? We say that the clash of greater and better societal change is far, far more important because most of the problems women face in society is a result of societal issues, which means that in a better society, in a more progressive society, women won't have the problems that OG talk about advancement in said society. Therefore, if we tackle society itself, then we also improve the benefit of specific women. This is true both in jobs, which means that in a better society, then women will have more employment opportunities, and in things like relationships, because toxic relationships are created by misogyny, and the best way to mitigate misogyny is societal change, because in most developing nations or conservative areas in first world countries, then most relationship a woman would enter will be toxic because most of the men perceive women as either lowly or less respected and such. Okay, before I'll get to analyzing the debate through this clash, I have, no, not now, I have several points of rebuttal. First of all, two rebuttals to closing government. First, about self-esteem. We don't understand why necessarily we want more self-esteem, because what we get from self-esteem is mostly women feeling better about themselves, which we accept as an impact, but it's slightly tiny benefit. And the second thing we get is about women now being able to advance. First, we don't get why women wanting to advance is a normative value. It is assumed that we want the most women as possible to advance, whereas we say we only want the women who want to advance. And we say that the women who already want to advance already have the will and the self-esteem needed to advance. We don't see why we need more. Second, even if self-esteem is the thing needed to advance, if you say that all women will get self-esteem and that will help them, then we say the barrier to women progressing is not their own will, but the men who hold high positions unwilling to accept the women into positions of power. Even if I am a woman with infinite amount of will and infinite amount of self-esteem, and I say that I now am a woman and I want to be the president, the prime minister of India, then what is needed is high politicians, or if I want to advance in a business, high businessmen and CEOs who are willing to promote me as a woman. And that is the impact that we give you far, far greater. Because when a dog rises up from its lowly position and barks at you, you don't lie down and accept the dog's dominance, you discipline the dog to stop barking. And that is exactly how misogynistic men in developing nations will treat these women, because they don't respect them in the first place. Now, two rebuttals to opening. About developing nations, I want to mitigate this case, because even in developing nations, children are already being educated towards individualism, with many schools constantly pushing kids to maximize their own educational and scholarly potential. Specifically, lots of times also in girl-focused programs, because most progressive nations already have programs specifically devoted to promoting girls in education and in workplaces and such. Therefore, the delta in developed nations, where in places where there are already liberal communities, is just smaller. Therefore, most of the debate, as my partner explained, is both in conservative communities inside developed nations and in developing nations as a whole. Okay, so the rest of my rebuttals will be integrated. What do we bring you? Before I get to the clash, yeah, I'll take opening.
If your research is based and they have communal mindset so powerful, then these societies are off clash, because if this mindset is so powerful, then our proposition will never pass there.
Okay, we say it's powerful, but it's not strong enough, and what your proposition will do is decrease the chances of it happening. Because as my partner analyzed, in order to bring societal change, you need solidarity from a vast amount of people. You need critical mass. You need that every man will know a wife, a mother, or a daughter that supports their cause. Because so that women will just spread this information that will get to men, and that enough men will hear about this from their women friends and family, because they do care about their women friends and family, that they will want to promote this cause. Now, why this cause? Now, why will this advance only from selflessness? It is because women put themselves in a massive amount of danger and a massive amount of risk in order to promote this cause. Because as CEO said, no, women will be able to cooperate anyways, because they cooperate in order to promote themselves. Yes, I know you said that. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so what we are saying in advance is that the individual cost is far, far too high. If a woman cooperates in order to promote this cause, it's far, far too risky and far, far too dangerous that she cannot be doing it for herself. She can only be doing it for the generations ahead. It's because women in Iran are arrested for years just for not wearing hijabs. And protesters against rape in India are being murdered just for protesting against rape. And as my partner said, women also get massive amounts of death threats. And if they are in developing nations and developing communities, they can be shunned by their men that are their friends and families. It is far, far more easier. No, it is far, far easier. Far, far more comfortable to just sit back and make and cook at home, because if you are already trapped in a conservative community which cannot let you advance, it is far, far too dangerous. It is far, far too costly to advance. And therefore, the only cooperation possible is a cooperation out of selflessness, that you're not doing it for yourself, that you are doing it for your daughter, you're doing it for your granddaughter, you're doing it for all the generations ahead. That is what needed, and that is what we prove. Because the barrier is societal acceptance by men, which we do not get from women getting more self-esteem, which is the the sole impact of closing. We do not get it from women demanding what is theirs, because a woman alone demanding what is hers has no societal impact, because the men can just tell her no. Men can say no if 50% of all the women demand societal change, and they refuse to cook for their husbands, and they refuse to care for their children as long as they don't get what they want. And also our case is far, far more probable than what we got from OO, because our case doesn't depend on women being malevolent. We show why even simple individualism will harm women in these societies, and we're far more nuanced. We don't assume that women will become snakes or assault others. And also OO said that in the conservative communities there's a slow delta. We say yes, it is slow, but it is by far the largest, because in these communities these communities are the place where we need this delta the most. These are the communities where women are the most vulnerable, and only through self-sacrifice and cooperation through self-sacrifice can these women change society as a whole. Glad to oppose.